So for everyone joining the recording, welcome and thank you for listening in. This session is to go over the Expanding School Partnership face-to-face program in Brisbane from the 11th of November to the 17th. And just to give a really overarching introduction into the program and what kind of things that you need to think about in the next few weeks. Next week, getting prepared for the program. So at AEF, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the unceded land on which we work, learn and live, of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people. We are grateful to the traditional custodians, elders and knowledge holders of all Indigenous nations and clans, and are committed to acknowledging their histories and cultural practices throughout our work in PASS. This artwork that you can see on the slide is one of many that you'll see pop up in the learning manual that you'll receive for the program. And this particular image is by Billy Missy at Northside Contemporary Arts Gallery, which shows a turtle laying eggs, one of the natural activities that happen during certain phases of the moon on uninhabited isles around Western Torres Strait Islands, waterways. Now, I'm wondering if Sophie's made it in. Have I seen her yet or no?
Yeah, I'm here, Nicole. Good to see everyone this afternoon. We've got St Gabriel's quickly flicking over to join this meeting also, which is great. Sorry, St Paul's. Great to see everyone this afternoon. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover off an overview of the Expanding School Partnership Professional Learning Program to take place in Brisbane from next week. We'll go over the actual program, the activities included. We'll touch on the risk management strategy and the strategy for communications between staff and participants. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time on cultural considerations. So collaborating with your PNG partners in November and going forward. We've also allowed a little bit of time for Q&A, so feel free to shoot those questions through either using the chat or raising a hand, either as we're delivering or at the end. We're here to best prepare you, and please use this time to get as much information as you can about the program. Now, some of you will be familiar with the team. You will have met them before, but we thought this would be a good opportunity just to revisit who will be in the room or who is perhaps behind the scenes helping support the organisation of the upcoming activity. Most of you should be aware that the Asia Education Foundation reports to Australia Awards PNG and Port Moresby. We collaborate closely to deliver both online and face-to-face activities. The AAPNG secondary education team is headed up by Aaron O'Shannessy, here with us today. Aaron works closely with Junior Mook and Medi Rita, who will be travelling out to Australia to support delivery in Brisbane. And have been involved with the program for some years now. They'll also be joined by Isabella Parapi, who comes out of Australia Awards PNG monitoring and evaluation team. So Isabella will be there for the first half of the program, and she's keen to conduct a focus group with the Australian participants. So we're hoping to carve out some time for that, for the Australian participants to meet with Isabella and just get a sense of your understanding of the program and a bit of feedback from you. You'd appreciate that, you know, with online delivery over the past couple of years, we haven't had a lot of opportunity to sit down and really chat about your experience. So we're really taking advantage of this in Brisbane. we'll provide a bit more information around that when you arrive in Brisbane. We also have Anna and Kathy as part of the team. They're the education specialists. Some of you will know Kathy and Anna well. They've been involved in the program since 2019, and they're the ones that are really helping us to put together the activities and lead the two streams, the educator and leader stream of the program. Good to have Anna with us today. She's going to speak a bit more about the program shortly. Thanks, Anna. We'll also, Jen Starr, who is the Director of International for Asia Education Foundation, will be emceeing a couple of conversations with guest speakers over dinner. Jen co-directs the Asia Education Foundation, and you'll see her face for a couple of dinners. And then finally, but not least of which, we have the support team that I'm involved with. We have Nicole here today, who you should all know well, and myself will be available throughout the program to support your participation. And Georgia and Kristen are going to be available on an as-needs basis. So we'll see how we travel. But the core team supporting delivery will be Anna, Kathy, me and Nicole, with the AAPNG's responsibility mostly being for the PNG participants, and where you'll go to if you have any queries throughout the program. I'll touch on that a bit more when we get to risk management. So just to clarify, we're looking forward to involvement of 7 schools from the 12 Australian schools signed up for PASS, and they're listed there. Great to have your involvement in the November activity. You've all been involved with the program since 2019, with the exception of St Saviour's. Oh, we've got some Gabriels joining us. That's good to see. And we just thought it would be a good time to ask you what you're hoping to get out of the program, or what's one key reason for participating in the activity. I don't know if St Paul's might like to chip in here with some thoughts around that, or Nick from Cherrybrook. Don't mean to put you on the spot. You can just type it into the chat box if you wish, or take yourself off mute. Collaborate with other schools for sure, and that's going to be a key focus of the program, and particularly seeing some collaboration between PNG and Australian participants.
Yeah, we're thinking along the lines that it's just simply the right thing to do to help people in need. Certainly the interest in science, but it's just simply the right thing to do. More of it in the world would be a lovely thing, wouldn't it? Yeah, getting to know each other, getting a better understanding of each other's place in the world, cultures, all of that, developing the PNG-Australian relationship. That's certainly a key focus of the program. Might move to the next slide. We thought it'd be timely just to provide an overview of who we're hoping might make it to Brisbane. It's a huge undertaking, as you would appreciate, to mobilise the PNG participants. They're coming from quite isolated locations across the country. Some haven't got passports, so that's being arranged. And then once they get passports, they have to undertake a range of processes, checks, if you like, and then apply for an Australian visa. So that's all in process at the moment. So we are hoping that 2 representatives from the National Schools of Excellence will be attending the Brisbane program, and there's 6 National Schools of Excellence across PNG involved with the program. We're also hoping that 2 representatives out of the secondary schools, so that's St Gabriel's, will also be on the plane to Brisbane. In addition,
and this is different to the 2019 program, there will also be a representative from each of the 12 provincial education officers, we hope. So that's with a view to expanding the program and I guess aligning what the educators and students are learning with what the provincial education officers are exposed to, making sure we're all on the same page, travelling the same journey together. We're also hoping two representatives of the PNG National Department of Education will be in attendance, which is really great, along with a representative from the Australian High Commission in PNG, Miriam Camaso. Miriam will just be observing sessions, so you may see her go in and out of rooms throughout the week. And I was going to ask Aaron to talk to this one if he doesn't mind, just a bit of background around the PNG participants.
No worries, thanks, Sophie. I just saw, just to answer Nick's question a bit further, so just in the differentiation between the schools here, the National Schools of Excellence, which were called the National High Schools, were set up in the 70s. They were initially the only year 11 and 12 schools in the country, the 6 of them, and I think initially there were 4, and then they've expanded to 6. Those schools have morphed into being the highest performing government selective schools, and so each of those schools has around 500 to 600 students. They're boarding schools, and they're required to admit students from across the country. So everyone, once they finish year 10, they can go in a pool to be selected to move into the National Schools of Excellence, which then put them in good stead to move into university. Those schools are also have just moved into a new priority area, which is a STEM focus. So those schools have a strong STEM focus, and this last 12 months, they've actually introduced a STEM curriculum, which they've been participating in, and this week actually is the first week that they've had STEM examinations being rolled out with the schools as well. The secondary schools also high performing, and most of them are also boarding schools. So out of the 12 schools we have, I think 10 are boarding schools. So they're all boarding schools, but they're also high performing, and some of them are years 7 to 10. So under Tale is only 7 to 10. The other schools go up until to year 12 as well. So a little bit of a mix. The school breakdown in PNG, there's quite a number of Catholic schools in the sector, in particular in remote and regional areas. In the major towns, they're more predominantly government schools. But just in terms of some background around the teachers that we'll be working with and the education officers, there's not a lot of opportunity for professional learning in PNG, even though they allocate a week in July to set aside that time. The focus is generally about sharing with colleagues within the school. They don't necessarily get external support for that professional learning. In the past, for those of you that have been to PNG, we've been able to bring in experts and also our Australian partners to support that at different times, but predominantly the sharing of professional learning is within the schools. And one of the aims of PASS at the moment with the 12 schools that we're working with is to skill up all of the teaching population across the different learning areas to be able to be those leaders in the wider community. So not just in the school that they work in, but the wider provincial community. So in the 12 provinces that we're working in. In terms of hierarchy in schools, probably very traditional from an older Australian schooling sense, where the principals generally are older individuals, generally male, generally have been there because of time served in the school. So they work their way through the hierarchy. The hierarchical power is very much that the principal has oversight for everything, decision making. There are deputy principals, and they're divided up into different areas: academic, welfare, etc. And so they have different areas of responsibility. One of the challenges with PNG schools is with the principals is they don't really have any financial training. So they manage the schools, but have to do that with the support from central, the National Department of Education, because they don't necessarily have that background or support. And I think that's one of the areas that we'll be recommending to the PNG government to assist schools moving forward. And I think that's probably, I've covered everything. I did jump to the last two first for that slide. So I'm happy to pause there if there's any quick questions, if that's easy. We don't have many people on the chat, so we can do that. No? Cool. We'll jump to program overview. So just in terms of what's guiding and underpinning our work for the PNGAus partnership, we have three key end of program outcomes that this second phase of the project is responding to. The first one's about supporting leadership skills and student-centered learning approaches, both from an educator and student perspective, and with the aim to improve curriculum outcomes. Underpinning that is obviously we are working with a priority area in STEM, but we are working across the schools in all different subject areas, aiming to support teachers with their pedagogical practice. With students, we're also working with them to assist with their learning in project-based learning activities. And most recently, we just did a drone design hack where we had a local PNG drone organisation come and teach the kids how to fly drones, but also come up with projects on how they could support their local communities. The second end of program outcome is around supporting PNG to deliver an enhanced STEM curriculum. As I mentioned before, the National Department of Education has invested in a new STEM curriculum for year 11 and 12 that's being rolled out in the National Schools of Excellence. That support's been focused in two ways. One is we've been working with the Australian Council of Education Research to help review and refine that curriculum, and that's just finished about 3 weeks ago, in fact, and that's been about 18 months of support. Main findings of that the review of the curriculum is that it was had a good broad understanding and response to global priorities in STEM by utilising local examples. However, some of the challenges was, and this has been reported back by teachers, too much content. And so, you know, what might be listed as a 2-week activity in the curriculum can take 6 weeks to teach. So ASA have provided a range of constructive feedback to support that around furthering the scope and sequence and refining that for year 11 and 12, as well as the assessment practices. So looking at summative and formative assessment and how that can be more useful in ensuring students' pathways of learning are mapped and tracked. The other area of support is that we have been running workshops with STEM teachers from the 12 schools for the last 12 months. This has been delivered by Queensland University of Technology. And we've just finished in September our last sort of formal workshop, and in January we'll be doing a consolidated one. And then the final end of program outcome is just around building those positive relationships and connections between PNG and Australia, which is the one thing that really underpins a lot of the work that we do here as part of the project. It's what's probably been the most challenging with COVID because they are, you know, we've not been able to bring people face to face as we had in 2019. And yes, it's great to be able to have those online connections, but being able to have those face-to-face interactions really solidifies and strengthens those relationships. And so we're really looking forward to being able to do that for the first time in November after 2 years, more than 2 years, 2.5 years. Actually, maybe it's 3 years, is it? 2019? No, 3 years. God, I can't count. 3 years. I know that COVID's melded all of our time frames a lot. So, and I can see there's a question there. So is the new STEM curriculum part of the STEM space? No, that's a good question, Beth. It's not. So the new STEM curriculum only goes up to year 10 in the standard space. And then my understanding is, and Anna, if you've heard otherwise, feel free to chime in. My understanding is at the moment, there's no STEM curriculum in year 11 and 12 other than the STEM curriculum that's offered at the National Schools of Excellence at the moment. And the plan is that after this curriculum's rolled out with the National Schools of Excellence, which this is the second year that they're doing it, so it's just been rolled out in year 12, it will move into the other secondary schools across the country. So initially, it's all 7 to 10, the new standards-based STEM curriculum, and then the 11-12 will, I suspect, roll out over the next sort of 12 to 18 months. But there's no firm plan on that. But it'll give you an idea. You being partnered with St Gabriel's, Beth, will mean that you'll obviously be focusing probably on the year 7 to 10 curriculum at the moment, because your counterparts won't have seen year 11, 12 curriculum at all, because they're not a National School of Excellence. Whereas for Cherrybrook, your partner school's using the new STEM curriculum and will be implementing that. So you'll have probably more opportunity to look at that together.
Aaron, it might be still useful for us to see and understand that STEM curriculum that's in the year 11 and 12 outcomes, so that if they are sort of moving toward that out at St Gabriel's in the near future, we know that whatever we're implementing now has got, it's future-proofed, if you like, and sort of leading towards scaffolding to that year 11 and 12.
Definitely, and the only challenge with that is legally we're not allowed to hand it out at the moment. It hasn't been endorsed by the secretary. So
no worries, mate. Just get one without watermarks and shoot it over. Right.
But my understanding is the standards base that's been released for 7 to 10 has informed the year 11, 12. Obviously, I've only been working mostly on the year 11, 12 because that's where our work's been focused. But my understanding is they've utilised what's in the 7 to 10, and they've created a bridging term 1 of year 11 that draws on all of that, and also brings people up to speed that may not have had the whole 7 to 10 STEM curriculum, because it has only been recently released as well, to then feed into the year 11 and 12. But you could potentially ask someone like Cherrybrook's partner Sigari to share it as well, and then I don't get in trouble.
Yeah, Aaron, it's Rayleigh here from St Paul's. Just wondering, I'm new to the PASS program, new to St Paul's this year. Is it possible we can get a copy of the 7 to 10 curriculum they're currently using in science?
Yeah, we can get that for you. I'll check with NGOE to get a copy of that. I think we do have a copy on our server.
Yeah, we just thought it might be a good resource to bring to the Brisbane conference.
Great. Yeah, I'll check in with our team here and get them to find out, and we'll make sure we upload that so it's downloadable.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, good point, Anna. The year 7 to 10 is underpinned with STEAM, so it's actually the STEAM curriculum for the standards base, and then year 11, 12 is just STEM. And that comes from different sections of different departments, not necessarily communicating properly with each other.
They're great controversial questions that you've come up with today, so thank you. We welcome them. But they're very valid questions, because that's the space that we're working in. And as Aaron's mentioned, standard space is fairly new too, and they're rolling it out at the same time as the secondary, or the 11s and 12s from those national high schools are doing the STEM. So great questions, and I'm sure those same questions will come up with the teams when you're together. However, moving on now, the program, this is the part that we're interested in learning a little bit about. So as you know, we're going to be pulling everybody together from Friday the 11th up until Wednesday the 16th. The Australian participants, which is the group here that we have with us today, you guys will be heading home around the 15th. And then we've got our PNG teams here for the extra day. They will be broken into 2 streams, as has been mentioned. So we'll have a teacher stream and a leader stream. What you'll expect, or what you should expect, is if you're in that leadership stream, is that a lot of our team that are coming from PNG have been doing a deep dive into women's leadership. And so you will experience a gender balance biased to a women's group. So that's going to be a really exciting opportunity for those teams to have some greater exposure to leadership streams here in Australia, and what it looks like for you as leaders to be leading in your schools as well. As Aaron's already mentioned, those real key outcomes for the program is definitely around building those positive relationships with the teams between both Australia and PNG. I know that our teams, we've been working in country with them, and they're so excited to cross the border.
We're of course really excited to have them cross the border, but every time we see them, all they're asking about is, you know, their partner schools and what their partner schools are doing. And there's nothing more powerful than us not telling the stories, actually just getting everybody in the same room to be able to share and connect and learn from each other about what's been happening for the past 3 years. You'll find the themes of the workshops are going to be focused around the capabilities. So as we have in the Australian curriculum, we have those general capabilities, or people like to frame them around the 21st century skills for the future, STEM thinking skills. This is a theme that will emerge across the whole program. And, you know, of course, touching on that standards-based in the STEM curriculum, that's a new way of thinking that's come right to the front in Papua New Guinea, based, you know, around this reform that's happening with both of those curriculums. Of course, STEM education leadership is a really big one. We will have a focus on entrepreneurship as well, which is a really easy link to some of the thinking that is happening around STEM and classroom pedagogy in terms of, you know, how we're using design thinking or project-based learning or student-centered approaches. And of course, how we're supporting women and girls in not just their learning, but their leadership as well. If I could go to the next slide. Thank you. So for the teacher stream, our beautiful Kathy Kirby will be leading this stream. If you're involved with that stream, you'll be participating with activities that STEM punks will be running, and that will be an effective learning design sprint. And you'll also have an opportunity to be part of a workshop with ASA. They're going to lead one around assessment and how to assess skills and capabilities, particularly in that STEM and that capability space, which sometimes is a little bit of a challenge to assess. So we're really looking forward to that teacher stream with Kathy. The teams that will be with me for the lead, if we could just swap over, the leadership stream. We will be meeting with the Department of Education International, and we will be having a roundtable discussion. Part of that will be focused on strategic leadership. Parts of it will be around that global citizenship education that's emerging in Queensland particularly, and also around pulling apart some of the nuts and bolts of what it looks like to lead a reform around a standards-based education. So it will be a roundtable discussion, and we're looking forward to that. And the second main focus for that leadership stream will be working with Dr. Barbara Waterston, who's from ASIL, and we're really looking forward to, again, working with her around doing a deeper dive into leadership and what it looks like to lead as a woman, not just here in Australia, but in Papua New Guinea as well. So those two streams will be sitting independent from each other. However, the program for everybody, where we're going to be working as a whole group, there will be an activity that's focused in on that entrepreneurship stream. So working with MIE Lab, which comes out of Adelaide University, they run a Shark Tank e-school, and some of you may have already, you might already be familiar with this because it's a program that you may have used in your schools throughout the past few years. I do hear echoes of people having really successful learning outcomes by integrating this way of working, particularly through COVID. We have Taj Pabari, who will be a guest speaker for us at one of our dinners one evening. We also have the DFAT Ambassador for Australia for Women's and Girls, and she's going to come and keynote, and she will be also drifting through some of our different workshops at different times, which is so lovely to have, you know, representatives from DFAT come and attend and learn about the work that our partnership teams are doing together. We will have an Indigenous performance as well at one of our dinners, and we get to go to Quagoma, which I'm excited about too, and that will be the Kin exhibition. And of course, you cannot bring Papua New Guineans to Australia without doing something to do with NRL. So we will be at Suncorp Stadium for a tour, and we will have a speaker there as well for that tour. So that's a very high level overview of the two streams and some of the activities that we're going to be leading as part of the program. And of course, Sophie and Nicole will be sharing further detailed information with you as it approaches.
Thank you, Anna. And so now I'm going to go over all the travel arrangements of what you can expect in Brisbane and assure you that you're well taken care of. And pretty much from the moment you land in Brisbane, you can take your hands off the wheel, and we've got everything to cover you. So firstly is around accommodation and the venue and meals. All participants will be staying at the Novotel South Bank in Brisbane, and that's a super central location in Brisbane, just across the river from the city. And so that's both Papua New Guinean and Australian participants and all staff as well. And so quite a few of the workshops and dinners will actually be located at Novotel in their conferencing space. But we will also be getting out and about and having some of other sessions and dinners at QUT Gardens Point, the Queensland Museum and the Queensland State Library, which are all a short walk or short drive away from the hotel, which we will organise any transfers for that as well. The rooms at Novotel are arranged by twin shared rooms based on your gender. And unless you've already reached out and shared that you'd like a single room, which comes at an additional cost, which has already been organised with Novotel. But we can share the rooming list with you shortly as well, just so you know who you're bunking with. As guests of the hotel and as part of the conferencing, there will be Wi-Fi available for everyone, and all meals will be included for the duration of the program, including buffet breakfast from 6:30 a.m. at Novotel, morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea and dinners. And if you're still hungry, any snacks or additional foods will need to come out of your own pocket. In terms of attire and dress code, all participants, PNG and Australian, will receive 1 to 2 pass branded polo shirts, which I've all reached out to you for your sizing. And so you'll be encouraged to wear these throughout the duration of the program, as well as your lanyards with your name on them and emergency contact details, particularly on those days when we're leaving the hotel. For the official welcome dinner on the Sunday night, we suggest getting a little bit more dressed up, nothing too fancy, but just smart casual dress. But otherwise, the remainder of the program is just neat casual dress. As I said, with the venues and activities, some of them are organised majority at South Bank, so within walking distance from the hotel. So we suggest wearing some comfortable shoes for walking between the venues, but really they're about, maybe it's a maximum of 15 minutes for the walk, so nothing too strenuous. And also for getting out and about, we suggest taking a hat and umbrella, because we never know what Brisbane's going to give us, unfortunately, at the moment. And that's particularly for the Brisbane River Cruise and Lone Pine visit on that Sunday as well. And also, final suggestion is just to bring a warmer layer for those notoriously cold air-conditioned rooms for the conferencing as well. So for your flights and transfers, shorts be okay, silly question, don't want to be underdressed. I think that would be okay more for the casual days, and so the Lone Pine and whatnot, but I imagine most of the Papua New Guineans will be wearing longer pants. Yeah. So all flights for those who are flying have all been booked, and you can expect to receive them in your inbox this week. And that's all those that we've already discussed between us and confirmed. So there's no surprises there. Unless you've requested different times for flights, the majority of participants, Australians, will be arriving the Friday afternoon. in time for the arrival dinner on that first night. And then we'll return home on the Tuesday afternoon or night after those that day's activities. And so we'll also be arranging, or we have arranged, airport transfers for when you arrive and depart Brisbane. And these details will be accompanying your flight itinerary this week as well. Oh, not finished. For those teachers driving in, and Sharon, that'll be you, there is parking at the Novotel, which will be covered by pass. They have advised that it's you can't actually assign parking, and it's first come, first served basis. So when you do arrive, you'll just have to see a reception and they can show you where to park. But they've advised if they're full, there's parking just at the Convention and Exhibition Centre, which is just a 5-minute walk away. So we can arrange all that when you arrive and make sure you're all covered there. Before I hand back over to Sophie, was there any questions about the travel or logistics or anything like that? Staff are receiving transport to our local airports. No, unfortunately, Rayleigh, that will have to be covered by yourself to get to your local airport. No worries. There's nothing else. I'll hand over to you, Sophie.
Thanks, Nick. And just a brief focus now on media and photography. You should all be aware that you've been asked to sign a pass agreement, which includes a media clause, effectively giving your permission for us to use any photos of you taken of you throughout the program. As part of our deliverable for PASS, we're required to create a suite of promotional videos, and we see the November program as a really great opportunity to add some really great footage to those videos. So we're keen to have your permission to do that. And probably not so much an issue for this program with just adults taking place, but when we had the 2019 program, it was definitely worth flagging that PASS is an Australian government initiative and therefore has to adhere to DFAT policies. And with that, there is an expectation that a certain amount of respect will be given in terms of taking ethical images of participants, particularly children, during program activities. So just flagging that and reminding everyone that it is a DFAT initiative. Also letting you know that we have arranged for a videographer to be present from 11 to 14 November. Baden Findlay is very familiar with the PASS program and is working with us to develop those promotional videos that I just mentioned. So he will be present in several of the meeting rooms, several of the activities, taking footage for videos. So don't despair, that's who that is. We've also got an AEF photographer joining us just for 2 days, or 1.5 actually. She'll be taking some photos that will hopefully support some social media that we're aiming to generate out of this program. Her name is Wendy Wen. We encourage you all to take photos and videos throughout the program and ideally share them with us using the WhatsApp group that we'll touch on a bit later. And hopefully we can use some of that really authentic footage taken by you to further develop the promotional videos that I've touched on here. So we're all about capturing the moment and getting that on record via video and photographs. I'm now going to launch into a bit of an overview on risk management and communication protocols. Probably the driest session as part of this briefing, but necessary. And some of you may have heard this before when you came to the 2019 program, so bear with me. But Asia Education Foundation work closely with Australia Awards PNG to ensure we have a really robust risk management strategy. We also consult with Tetra Tech, DFAT and the University of Melbourne to develop that strategy. And it's very much framed around 4 key components: being well prepared, minimising risk, responding quickly and effectively, and debriefing. All staff will have risk management manuals with them at all times, and in that we will have the information that you've shared with us for risk management purposes, so personal information. We'll also have 2 first aid officers present for the program. Nicole, here with us today, and Junior Muke have undertaken recent first aid training, and so they will be there to call on with basic first aid kit supplies. I also suspect that we'll have participants amongst the group that have undertaken first aid training, so we can call on you as well, perhaps. This is all worst case scenario stuff. We have arranged for comprehensive travel insurance to be available for both Australian and PNG participants through the University of Melbourne. But I need to flag in terms of for the Australian participants that is only comes into play if you're travelling more than 100 kilometres to the Novotel South Bank. Otherwise, it's not usable. And of course, because you're Australians in Australia, you have access to Medicare for any medical issues. So whilst there is an insurance policy in place, it does have some limitations that you need to be aware of. And if you need to discuss that with me, do reach out after this session. I touched on earlier that we like to be well prepared for this sort of program delivery. And with that, we have now 8 action plans that we can refer to depending on the sort of risk incident that may occur. And of those 8 plans, we have 3 that have been developed specifically with COVID safety in mind for the different scenarios. You'd appreciate that as we've been planning for this program, consideration of COVID was more acute, I guess, earlier on in the year, and now we come to November and policies and restrictions have relaxed quite a lot. That said, we think it's important, of course, to have some plans in place, and we'll be monitoring COVID safety throughout the program. We'll have hand sanitizer, masks, etc., to hand available for participants. We do ask you, I guess, to be sensible as participants in a large group and self-monitor. And I guess keen to let you know that I'm the go-to person throughout the program should you need to talk about any health matters, particularly in regard to possible COVID. Just come and have a chat with me and we will review the situation on a case-by-case basis. We're hoping that it won't impact on the participation, your participation in the program, but we do need to go into this with plans in place. It's a requirement that all participants are vaccinated, and that's what is being asked of the PNG participants as they come into the program, and indeed staff. Another key component of risk management is communication, and this is where we start to lean on the lanyard. We ask you to wear the lanyard, the beautiful lanyard, at all times. It will on the back have key emergency information numbers, and on the front have, of course, your name and role. We will have all emergency information in our folders, but we also are asking you to enter key contacts into your mobile, so they're to hand with that number there, 0434 839 835 being the AEF emergency mobile number. So I'll be on the other end of that, ready to pick it up should you need to use it. We do ask that you keep your mobiles close to hand and on at all times throughout the program. We also have set up a dedicated WhatsApp group for participants and the PASS team to use throughout the program. We haven't quite launched that yet. We thought we would do that next week, but that will be the key mode of communication we'll be using throughout the program. We find WhatsApp is very popular with our PNG friends and really effective way to communicate with the group throughout delivery. So please keep an eye on that group. I'm now going to hand over to Aaron again, just to touch on some cultural considerations when collaborating with our PNG partners.
Thanks, Sophie, and I'm sorry that I'm delivering this and not Junior or Medi, but they're focused on getting visas and passports for everyone to leave next week. So I said that I'd step in, and I've had 3.5 years in PNG now, so I know a little bit about the cultural context. I would not say that I'm an expert by any means, but I can give some broad advice on PNG. But just to some, I guess, overarching background around PNG culture, there's 3 main values that underpin all of the way in which people interact and work together. First one's the one talk system, and that means it's Pidgin, and it means one talk, so people that come from the same region or area or of the same tribal heritage. There's big, strong bonds between people from the same one talk system and ways in which people share with each other and have responsibility to care for each other. So there's no social security system here in PNG. And if there is an issue, it's usually your one talk system that will step in and assist you to, look after yourself in challenging times. There's also a range of other layers of cultural expectations that filter through, and that depends on where you're from in PNG, in fact. So there's not one rule or one set rule that defines how one talk operates. You can see on the last point on this slide, there's more than 800 languages in PNG. Each of those are distinct languages which make up distinct tribes, and each of them have different cultural practices as well. So depending on whether you're a Highlander or whether you're from the islands, the island provinces, most of the systems are matriarchal. The Highlands is very patriarchal. There's rulings around, depending on your level of birth in the family, on what your level of responsibility is to your children, to your parents, to your nieces and nephews, to your cousin brothers and cousin sisters, so they're related along family lines. So I think that will be a very interesting topic for you to have conversations with your partners around which one talk are they from, and what are some of the cultural practices that they follow and adhere to in terms of working with their families. Reciprocity is another one. So Papua New Guineans are very hospitable, very kind and inclusive. So whenever you visit their space, they're very much open arms offering in terms of welcoming you, whether it be with a lei or a pig that's been slaughtered and been cooked for your meal, all of those sorts of things. So I think it's really just key, and I found this previously working in Asia. Australians tend to be a little bit apathetic about that hospitality aspect when we're working with people from the region. Maybe apathetic is not the right word, but we're not as passionate about it as others, and I think that's one thing we need to really be considerate of when we are welcoming people into our schools, of that reciprocity that some of us who have been here in 2019 will be aware of from having visited schools. And then the final thing is that a lot of Papua New Guineans work around the sun, so daylight, so up early to bed, making sure that all of their work and their days align to that. So you'll probably find that your partners will be up quite early in the morning. They might go up and go for a walk before workshops start. Most schools start before 8 a.m. here, and some people have to travel multiple hours to get to work. So it's a key thing. Papua New Guinean is a very strongly Christian society, so that underpins a lot of the values in the ways in which the legal system is designed, the beliefs and the behaviours. Similar to Australia, there's a variety of different Christianity practices, so whether they're Catholic, Protestant, Seventh-day Adventist, etc. And that is also interwoven with tribal spiritualism. So going back to that Wontok and those local practices are often woven into Christianity as well. And again, I think that's an interesting conversation to have with your partners. And you'll find that, in one school, there'll be a range of people. So Nick, for your partners in Sagari, you're going to have a range of teachers that will be from different Wontoks that will have different cultural practices as well. Not surprisingly, PNG is very communal rather than individualistic. So most people live in multi-generational homes or have support extended family. So it's quite often for a married couple that both have jobs to be supporting their brothers and their brother's wife and children and living together. And that sort of comes back again to that Wontok system and supporting those that are part of your connection. As I said, there are 800 languages. The main languages that are spoken are Toksin, which is Pidgin, and Motu, which is the language of the south, the Papuans down along the southern boundary. But depending on which region you go to, there will be other languages that people speak more than those two. But English is the official language of government and schooling. So all of those official departments run in English as their key language. Next slide, please. Papua New Guineans are very considerate in terms of introducing and interacting with others. So if someone says hello, there's an expectation that you'll stop and have a conversation, not continue to walk, because that shows that you don't consider them an equal or that you're being mean with your time. So I encourage you that if someone does say hello, unless you have to rush off, make sure just explain that rather than just saying hi and keeping going. Also very customary to shake hands and ask, how are you? Or you're all right, which is the Pidgin version of it. And when you start interacting, for those of you that haven't interacted with your Papua New Guinean partners yet, when you start hearing them speak Pidgin, you can quite often understand a lot of the words that are being said. They're spelt phonetically, and they're pronounced very similar to English. So when you hear people speaking, I expect that you'll be able to pick up some Pidgin as well over the coming program in November. Some general taboos, so never step over food, as that's considered extremely rude. Less likely to happen in Brisbane because we'll be having tables where we're sitting around a campfire with a pig that's being roasted, or a mumu, which is like a hungy. Also, don't point at people because that can be perceived as gossiping about that person. And also, if you do want to indicate where someone is or point at someone, people use their chin, so they gesture like that rather than using their finger. Just that's a polite way to do that. As I've said, English is the language of instruction. Quite often, and you'll see this, a lot of Papua New Guineans, they don't like being alone, and you'll quite often see them even in the afternoons or in the evenings when they've finished the day's activities. They'll be sitting in a group, huddled together, having a chat, laughing, discussing stories, telling stories, sharing what's happened that day. They're very much about interacting with each other and having that relationship. And even if they don't know you from a bar of soap, if you're a Papua New Guinean and you're in the same space, they'll congregate together and have those conversations. There's that connection there. So I encourage you, when you do see your Papua New Guinean friends sitting down, having a chat, to join in, because there will be some interesting conversations happening from the day's activities, or from them just coming together and sharing what's been happening in their lives over the last period. Also with the languages, most people are multilingual, minimum probably bilingual. Most would probably speak 3 to 4 languages, so they'll usually speak English, Tokising, which is Pidgin, and then one of their parents' mother tongues, which could be Motu, but it could also be any of the other 800 languages, and they might often speak both their parents' mother tongues, and then they might also speak a neighbouring tribe tongue as well. So people are very fluent in a range of different languages, and quite often when you hear them speaking, you can hear them jumping between languages depending on who they're talking to. And you can hear distinct differences in the way that they speak as well. A Highland speaker speaks very different to an Island speaker, and the way the languages are pronounced and said. So there's a point here about Papua New Guineans that might have low confidence to speak public in workshops. This is often around just not wanting to lose face or not look as though they have made a mistake. However, Papua New Guineans do like to speak publicly when they know what they're talking about. They're quite confident, very much that oration style of talking, in particular when they know the subject area that they're talking about. If they're shy, generally that's to do with the fact that they're not sure about the subject area and don't want to be seen as making a mistake. So I think what we try and do as part of the professional learning is to give them that space to question, to ask, to make mistakes, and not feel as though that there's a shame attached to that, because the way to learn is to ask questions and get things wrong and try again. So encourage you as their partners to support them with that during the workshop next week. And I think that's it from me. So.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm happy to go with this one, Nicole, if you doubling up here. So just a quick overview of what we'd like to remind you to bring. Obviously, any prescription medication, some basic first aid supplies. We will have some on hand, but always good to have your own. And then I guess more so for that Sunday activity when we're out and about on the boat and at Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary, good to have sunscreen, sunglasses, sun hat, and possibly an umbrella, depending on how Brisbane treats us. And of course, please do bring your own laptop device so that you can use that within workshops. The final reminders checklist, if you haven't already done so, confirm your personal details, particularly for risk management purposes. Submit your past participant agreement. Join the WhatsApp group for all November program participants in the past team. That's going to be our key way of communicating with you going forward. And keep an eye on your emails for flight itineraries and transfer details. Over coming days, we'll be sending that out actually by email, not via the WhatsApp. So I know that we've sort of hit the 1 hour mark, and very happy to take any further questions from Sharon or Nick at this point. Otherwise, if you think of anything afterwards that you'd like clarification on, feel free to send through a message